Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do the first of a three-part series on changing the rear tire on the 2017 BMW R1200R. In the first part, I'm just going to remove the wheel. The second part, we'll change the tire. The third part, we'll balance the wheel and then remount it on the bike. I hope you find this helpful. If you do, please like and subscribe. All right, in the first part here, you can really learn from my mistakes. It looks like you could just pull the wheel off without taking the muffler off because it is a single swing arm bike, which I really like. You don't have to worry about the cush drive. You don't have to worry about the chain drive. I've got a shaft drive. This is a really fairly easy job. You can see you've just got 5 bolts in here to pull the wheel off, but you do have to take the muffler off. I have tried a couple of times to do this without taking the muffler off, and you just end up really fighting it for no reason at all. The muffler comes off super easy. There's a couple of T25 bolts here that pull this heat shield off. Then you've got a T40 here that you loosen this bracket, and then right under here, it's kind of hard to see right now, but there is a 13mm nut on a clamp. And once the heat shield guard is off, you'll see that. We'll loosen that bolt up, and the muffler just twists, comes right off. Then we have full, easy access to taking the wheel off. So let's jump right into it. All right, so before I get into this, a couple of little cheater tricks. I like to use some of these anti-fatigue mats from Harbor Freight. Makes it a whole lot easier on my knees. Sit down, I'm on the ground. And I also have a little kneeling pad I got from Lowe's. I really like to use that stuff. Makes this a whole lot easier. So let's get into this. First things first, we're going to get the heat shield off. A couple of T25s. They just unscrew right off of there, and then there is a little clamp down at the bottom of the heat shield that you kind of have to pull to get the heat shield out. So there's our bolts, and then I'm wiggling. The heat shield is just down in here. The heat shield comes right off. All right, let's set that down. And now we've got the bolt here and the 13mm clamp. I'm going to go ahead and loosen the clamp. Again, just one of my little cheater tricks. I like to use an extension anytime I use a socket. You have to be a little careful because it is easier to kind of get sideways taking your nut off. So you have to kind of support the head of the wrench, but I actually prefer that. I find it's easier for me to support the wrench if I do that. So I'm going to loosen this nut up. All right, I think that's enough. We'll find out here in just a minute. A little rock that's been riding around with me. And then we've got our T40. T40 goes right in here. Again, I use this extension to help me support the wrench and hold it nice and perpendicular with the bolts I'm trying to take out. And I do think that makes a difference. There's a couple of little rubber bushings here, and there you saw the muffler move as I had this loose. So I'm going to take this little bolt and the little kind of cap off. And now this muffler is going to just rotate around. You can see there's a plate here on the back of the muffler, so you have to rotate towards the wheel. A little bit of wiggling, a little bit of rotating, and you'll come right out of that clamp. Just gentle wiggle, rotate, a little back and forth. It's coming, kind of hard for you guys to see that in the video. And there we go, we've got the muffler off. Now, if you had an aftermarket muffler, you may not have to take it off if it's a little smaller. The BMW muffler is pretty big in diameter. But now you can see, man, we've got a great open shot to get the wheel off. So let's get right to it. All right, again, this is straight out of the owner's manual. They tell you to put the bike in first gear, leave the tire on the ground till you get these bolts broke loose. So again, what I like to do here is I use a breaker bar. Don't ever break bolts like this loose with your torque wrench. It can be tempting because it's long, you can get lots of torque, but you'll mess your torque wrench up. So don't ever do that. I like to use about a 6-inch extension here just because it makes this a little easier to get to. It takes a T50 torque wrench to get these bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and break them loose. I like to break them loose in the same kind of star pattern that I put them back on with. So I'm just going to pick one here. Breaking it loose doesn't really matter. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now that I've got those 5 broken loose, I'm going to put the bike up on its rear stand, and I should be able to take those out by hand. Let's take these bolts out now. I don't even need the breaker bar. I think I can just get them out by hand. I'm going to take them out from the bottom first. I'm going to leave the top bolt as the last bolt I take out. So there's 1, 2, and again I do it in the star pattern. It doesn't matter at this point, they're already loose. It's just out of habit. There's 3, 4. Now this wheel is supported by the center hub of the wheel, and there's a little shoulder on the bearing assembly that the wheel mounts to that's actually holding the wheel in place. So I can probably get this bolt out most of the way, maybe even all the way, without the wheel falling off. But what I'm going to try to do is support it on here so it stays on that shoulder. So I've got my knee against it and my hand as I'm pulling this out. It's a little tight, so I'm going to just grab my socket wrench here. I don't need it, just makes it a little easier. Again, I'm supporting the wheel with my right hand and with my right knee so that it stays on that shoulder. And honestly, it just slipped off of the shoulder. Kept it on there as long as I could, but there we go. There's our 5th bolt. Guys, it does not get any easier than that, than pulling the rear wheel off a motorcycle. So there we go. Now let's work on changing this tire. Stay tuned for part 2.